Yeism, why Kanye West never changed, we just never understood him. A psychological reframing through Claude Steiner. This isn't one of those posts to be, oh, he's right, he's wrong, da-da-da-da-da. No, it's here to talk about his perspective and the superpower that he has in creating, why he is who he is, and how we just never took the time to really understood him because of our own biases. You see, there are some people who break the rules, and then there are people who were never playing the same game to begin with. Kanye West has always been the latter. For 20 years, the world has tried to diagnose him, label him, box him in, calm him down, explain him, cancel him, celebrate him, worship him, or destroy him. And through all of that, one thing has remained consistent. Kanye West believes Kanye West. People say he changed. They say he fell off. They say he lost his mind. But the truth, the unconventional truth, is that Kanye never changed. Our expectations did. And the reason so many people misunderstand him is because Kanye doesn't transact with the world from the same psychological model most of us unconsciously follow. Claude Steiner, one of the founders of Transactional Analysis, laid out a system that explains human behavior through ego states and transactions. Most people bounce between three ego states: parent, adult, and child. Depending on context, Kanye, however, doesn't shift like that. He operates from one dominant ego state at all times, and he interacts with the world through transactions that don't follow the usual rules. That's why the public reads him as unpredictable. That's why the culture calls him bipolar. That's why people project instability onto a man who has been stunningly consistent for 2 straight decades. I call this phenomena Yeism. A belief system forged in fire, vindication, and self-certainty, so strong that the moment he commits to a vision, he has to follow it through. He doesn't toggle. He doesn't adjust for your comfort. He doesn't soften for optics. He runs forward until the world rearranges itself to the truth he already saw. And the thing is, he's been right too many times for it to be a coincidence. Let me break down how Steiner psychology explains Kanye and why what looks like chaos is actually the same pattern repeating itself with machine-like consistency. Claude Steiner and the psychology of transactional analysis. Claude Steiner argued that every interaction humans have is made up of 2 parts, a stimulus and a response. These transactions come from one of 3 ego states: parent, learned rules, judgment, authority, shoulds, and inherited values; child, emotion, impulse, creativity, rebellion, vulnerability, and wonder; and the adult, logic, reasoning, reality processing, and decision-making. Healthy people in society, quote unquote, move fluidly between these states. They argue from the parent state and apologize from the adult. They dream from the child and execute from the adult. The ability to shift is part of what we think of as normal. But what happens if someone can't or simply doesn't shift? Steiner would argue that this person appears rigid, reactive, or difficult to the outside world because they don't negotiate ego states like everyone else. Their one-state dominance makes their behavior consistent in a way that can be mistaken for mania when the world is out of sync with them. This is where Kanye comes in. Kanye operates from a creative, future-locked child-adult hybrid, a rare configuration. His child ego fuels imagination, intuition, and emotion. His adult ego is what turns those visions into world-shifting products. But what's missing is the parent ego, the shoulds, the caution, the self-editing. Kanye simply does not perform parent ego state transactions. He doesn't adjust behavior for social acceptance. He doesn't self-censor. He doesn't prioritize obedience. He doesn't comply with the norms that keep most people in line. And because he doesn't toggle, people interpret him through the wrong psychological model. They think he snaps. They think he has episodes. They think he spirals. But in reality, Kanye behaves with stunning predictability. Remember this: feels the truth intensely, acts on it immediately, challenges everyone who doubts him, pushes until reality bends, gets vindicated later, repeats. That's not bipolar. That's one ego state operating at all times, unfiltered and undefeated. And if you examine his actual words from 2002 to 2024, you will see the same pattern over and over again. Kanye has been saying the same thing his whole life. I see something you don't see yet, but you will. People just weren't listening. Let's go back. Early Kanye, before the world believed, on Last Call, before he had an album out, before he was the star, before we even knew if the industry would accept him, Kanye said, I'm going to be the next big producer, and I'm going to be bigger than that. I'm going to be the best. Nobody believed him. That was the first mistake. He also said in an interview, I ain't have a problem with self-esteem. I always had a problem with the world. Are you seeing the pattern? He never doubted himself. He doubted the world's ability to see him clearly. Steiner would say Kanye wasn't matching the world's ego state expectations. He wasn't operating from the insecure child or the cautious parent. He was operating from a self-actualizing adult-child fusion. He had already decided who he was, and he expected the world to catch up. And eventually, it did. By the graduation era in 2007, this was the first great vindication against hip-hop, outside of already making incredible music. People forget how insane it sounded when Kanye said he would outsell 50 Cent in 2007. The industry laughed, radio laughed, hip-hop laughed. He said on MTV, I'm going to be the biggest artist of this generation. They told him he was delusional. Then graduation outsold Curtis. It shifted the entire sound of hip-hop and ended the whole gangster rap era in one day. This wasn't an accident. That was Yeism. Belief plus execution plus vindication. Let's not forget the Yeezus era. In 2013, during the Yeezus press run, Kanye gave us some of the clearest Yeism statements ever recorded. Society called him manic, but listen to the quotes without judgment. In the BBC radio interview, I know I'm going to be the biggest rock star of all time. In the Zane Lowe interview, I'm not always right, but I'm always real. What'd he say? I feel like I'm too busy writing history to read it. These aren't manic episodes. These are identity statements. Steiner would say that Kanye is stuck or anchored in one ego state, but that ego state is functional, productive, visionary, and unclouded by parent state insecurity. Kanye never claims to be right. He claims he will eventually be seen as right. And historically, he has been. How can we forget the fashion wars? This is where Yeism hit its apex. Nobody in fashion wanted him. They laughed when he called himself a designer. They mocked his ambitions. His response? I will go down as the voice of this generation, of this decade. He said, you don't realize I am Warhol. I am the #1 most impactful artist of our generation. And the most prophetic? I see stuff that other people don't see. So why would I listen to people who can't see what I can see? People called him unstable. People called him delusional. But 10 years later, Yeezy became a multi-billion-dollar empire that changed the entire silhouette of footwear worldwide. Who was right? The same person who always is, Kanye. And we can't forget the Sway moment. In 2013, he said, you know what, Sway, you ain't got the answers. But everyone forgets what happened later. He came back and said, you know what, Sway had the answers. Not because he shifted ego states, but because his adult ego state finally had the data. Kanye pattern is simple. Decide based on intuition, which is the child state. Execute with force, which is the adult state. Reassess when the truth reveals itself, and then acknowledge it openly. Not bipolar, not unstable, simply linear. Kanye does not negotiate feelings. He negotiates truth over time. Yeism is what happens when a person's intuition keeps being proven right, even after years of being told they're wrong. After a while, your brain says, everyone telling me no is a distraction. Doubt is a sign I'm on the right path. Opposition is the price of being early. And Kanye has said all of these things just in Kanye language. Quote, for me to say I wasn't a genius, I would just be lying to you and to myself. Sometimes people write novels and they just be so genius. I just want to write life. My greatest pain in life is that I will never be able to see myself perform live. People call those statements narcissistic. I call them data points. A man who has been right too many times begins to assume correctness. A man who has been doubted too many times begins to assume doubt is ignorance. A man who has been misunderstood his whole life begins to see misunderstanding as proof of originality. That's Yeism, not delusion, pattern recognition. And that's why people mistake him for bipolar. Not because his mood changes, but because his transactions with the world don't shift ego states the way we expect. Now, let's never forget where people get Kanye the most confused. When Kanye went on television and said, George Bush doesn't care about black people, Black America said, he's with us. And for a long time, especially in the early 2000s, Black America held on to that moment as proof that Kanye was one of us, fighting with us, fighting for us, speaking truth to power on our behalf. But here's what we miss. Kanye wasn't performing a political act. He was performing a personal truth transaction. He felt something was wrong. He said that thing everyone else was scared to say. He didn't check with the parent ego for permission. He didn't check with the adult ego for optics. He didn't negotiate with the child ego for comfort. He felt, he spoke, he acted. One ego state, one direction, one truth. When Kanye later stood next to Trump wearing a MAGA hat, Black America treated it like betrayal because we projected meaning onto him that he never agreed to. We wanted him to be our representative, our voice, our avatar, but Kanye has never represented anyone except Kanye. And he told us this a long time ago. You may be talented, but you're not Kanye West. It sounds arrogant until you understand the psychology behind his behavior. Kanye isn't shifting allegiances. He's not switching ideas or sides. He's not flip-flopping. He's doing what he has always done. Feel something, believe it with complete certainty, act on it with no hesitation, challenge anyone who doubts him, and then adjust only when new truth arrives. And the thing is, he's consistent to a fault. Black people thought Kanye was ours, but Kanye was never ours. Kanye was always his. That's not betrayal. That's self-definition. People call Kanye crazy because they don't understand the psychology of someone who doesn't play the parent-adult-child game. Most of society is parent-led. We are rule-bound. We're self-policing. We obey norms to avoid punishment. Kanye is child-adult fused. The child equals, I'm going to say the truth out loud. The adult equals, I'm going to make this vision real in the physical world. When someone operates like that, people get uncomfortable because he cannot be controlled. He does not respond predictably. He does not fear consequences. He does not adjust for social expectations, and he does not seek permission. And people mistake this lack of normative behavior for pathology. But ask yourself this. If Kanye were actually bipolar in the way the public insists, how does a man in chaos deliver some of the most structured, meticulous, artistic outputs of the last 50 years? College Dropout, carefully crafted, late registration, orchestral, and disciplined. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, in my opinion, is magnum opus. Yeezus, minimalist precision, 808s and heartbreaks, emotionally coherent. Donda, an opus structured in movements. Kanye is chaotic in public, but surgical in creation. That alone disproves the bipolar, erratic output narrative. Here's what really happens. Kanye does not have mood swings. He has clarity swings. Not clarity as in he's confused, but clarity as in he sees something clearly, then he sees something else clearly. Most people get stuck on one truth at a time. Kanye sees multiple truths across timelines. He said, I am a forward thinker and I speak from my forward thinking. People confuse futurism with insanity, but the only real difference is hindsight. When you're early, people call you crazy. When you're right, they call you a genius. Kanye has just lived through that cycle too many times. And the thing most people really don't understand is that Kanye loves playing a creative game of chicken. When Kanye commits to a vision, he tests the world. How much resistance will you give? How much are you willing to lose to stop me from doing what I know needs to be done? He'll push until labels break, brands bend, executives panic, audiences split, friends fall away, contracts collapse. And if the price of his vision is everything, Kanye will pay it. He said, I'd rather be hated for what I am than loved for what I'm not. Well, and let's not forget, he said, I refuse to follow the rules that society has set up. It's not a tantrum. It's not instability. It is a transactional test. Kanye pushes reality, and eventually reality gives, because that's what visionaries do. People act shocked when Kanye pivots, but Kanye told us, I'm not always right, but I'm always right eventually. This is the most Yeism quote in existence. It means he doesn't care if he looks wrong now. He expects to be proven right later. He trusts the long arc of truth. He is loyal to his vision, not momentary or monetary opinion. Steiner would say Kanye's adult ego is not focused on current reality, but future reality. That's why Kanye operates like a time traveler emotionally. He behaves today based on the truths of tomorrow. That means Kanye is never wrong in his own frame. He can't be, because his truth is always set in the future, not the present. That's why he said, I feel like I just see things that people don't see. And my mind is the place where I draw from, not the world. People don't realize how consistent that is. Let me list out the predictions that got him laughed at. Being a rapper before anyone believed he could rap, becoming the biggest artist of his generation, popularizing auto-tune emotionally, making his fashion a serious part of hip-hop, Yeezy becoming a global fashion powerhouse, building a self-contained creative ecosystem in Wyoming, redefining church aesthetics and gospel music. Each one started with laughter. Everyone ended in vindication or impact. This isn't mania. This is a man whose future has a habit of becoming everyone else's present. It's easier for society to diagnose a visionary as unstable than to acknowledge our own psychological rigidity. When Kanye refuses to shift ego states, it makes us uncomfortable because we rely on shifting. We apologize even when we're right. We downplay our gifts. We surrender our intuition. We obey norms we don't believe in. We pretend to be smaller, and we negotiate our dreams. Kanye does none of this. And when you meet someone unbound by the parent ego, someone who does not bow, someone who does not flinch, someone who does not shrink, someone whose identity is not up for negotiation, the only words people have left are crazy, bipolar, unstable. But all Kanye is doing is refusing to participate in the ego state transactions we have normalized. We think that makes him unhealthy, but maybe it reveals something unhealthy about us. Let me put it plainly. Kanye isn't broken. Kanye is unintegrated, but unintegrated doesn't mean unstable. Again, Claude Steiner's transactional analysis becomes a map. The parent, Kanye rarely uses this. The adult, Kanye uses this to build and create and execute. And the child, Kanye uses this to feel into it and imagine. Instead of shifting between them fluidly, Kanye blends two and ignores one. Most of society blends parent with adult or parent with child. Kanye blends child and adult. This is why he's a once-in-a-generation creator. It's also why he's a once-in-a-generation disruption. His brain is wired for seeing, feeling, building, expressing, challenging, and expanding. He's not wired for conforming, apologizing, self-censoring, pleasing, obeying, or performing normalcy. So what looks like volatility to the world is actually the opposite. A straight line, a single frequency, a fixed axis, a man who never changed even when the world begged him to. Here's what I know. Kanye wasn't wild when he disrupted the music industry. He wasn't manic when he disrupted fashion. He wasn't crazy when he said things no one wanted to hear. He wasn't confused when he pivoted spiritually. He wasn't lost when he changed aesthetics, alliances, and ambitions. Kanye West is a man who trusts his inner voice, acts instantly, fights relentlessly, adjusts only when truth requires it, refuses to shift ego states, refuses to negotiate his identity, and refuses to pretend. He acts with brute force, conviction, because he is the only transaction style he knows. And truthfully, given the results, why argue with him? Yeism is the belief system forged when a person has been right so many times that their intuition becomes their religion. Kanye follows that religion with full devotion. Not because he thinks he's God, but because he knows he's Kanye. And as he once said, I am my own universe. He wasn't bragging. He wasn't giving us the blueprint. All we had to do was understand it. In closing, they tell me I'm crazy for making everything free. But I believe truth should never have a price tag. And the people who recognize real will always support the creator who refuses to lie to them. If this spoke to you, join the Patreon. Stand with the work. Stand with the truth to allow me to create. I am Warhol. I am Walt Disney. I am Steve Jobs. And I love you. And I'll never negotiate the truth.